So, hey everyone, I'm Dustin Guinee. I'm the lead organizer for LAUXR Meetup. For those of you that may not be familiar with Monique Escamilla, she is a mixed methods UX research lead for Albertsons Companies. She's the former head of research at Heap Analytics. She led global research at ADP. She's been doing this a long time. And today she's going to talk to us about this really amazing chatbot shopping assistant that they've built over at Albertsons. And, when I was asking Monique about this, I was thinking like, oh, okay, yeah, you're ordering groceries, right? And it's much more complex than that, right? It's a situation where, hey, I have a family of four. I need a meal plan for 5 nights, and I got a vegetarian, somebody that's gluten free, and of course, Dad is on the carnivore diet, and so he refuses to eat vegetables. Can you make me a meal plan? And yes, it can. This chatbot is smart enough to do that, thanks to Monique and team and all the research and design that went behind it. But also for those of us that maybe aren't working on chatbot features, the way that her and her team have been scaling research with AI and particularly AI agents, I think is really smart. Things like taking research requests, refining project scopes, identifying past insights, and sharing those insights with the team. The way that they're leveraging agents to scale research, I think, is really smart. In a world where all of us researchers are trying to do more with less, I think it's something that we could all learn from. Other than that, I would like to pass it over to Monique.
Hey, everybody. My name's Monique. And before I get into this, I know we're living through crazy times. And I just want to say that I was just promoted like last week to the head of research for Albertsons Shopper Experience. And that means like their website, their app, AI experiences marketing. And yes, I'm so grateful. But 2.5 years ago, I was at my lowest point and I was questioning everything. And that since then, it's been a firewalk. I mean, I was the first research role hired at Albertsons in 2 years. And I just want to, if you're feeling like you don't know where research is right now, or you don't know where your place is or your next role, I just kind of want to say, I see you, even though I don't. Right now, I'm just looking at Dustin, but I do. And I just, want you to know that. And I think if you're flexible and courageous, you will find where you belong. And I say that to myself because I think those two words, flexibility and courage, are what it takes right now. We are living in these very fraught, fast-paced times. And when it comes to AI, it's a bit of a quagmire, right? And I just decided about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'm going to jump right in because at worst, I'm going to know my enemy. At best, I'm going to be, a maker, and I'm going to make sense of this, and I'm going to play a role along the way for myself and my kids and all of us. So whether you embrace AI or you protest it or you're somewhere in between, I think this talk is going to be relevant. So crafting meaning via quality conversations. And why do I say that? It's because if you think about it, an AI assistant is actually playing like a customer service role, right? It's the first touch any of our customers are going to have with our org. And so it's about a conversation, and it's about a meaningful one because they're going to, press end if it doesn't work for them. So that's why really I don't want to talk about bots or whatever the experience is. It's really about relationships, and is this a meaningful and usable and trustworthy experience? So I'm going to walk you through two playbooks. So one is the research conversation design, right? And I'm going to walk you through what that Wizard of Oz methodology looked like. And this happens before the AI is real, even though I must couch this conversation in the fact that AI was and is real, even though we haven't launched this assistant, in the sense that we have two disparate AI experiences that are live today. It's our AI search and an AI meal planner. And part of the reason my core team and I wanted to engage in this Wizard of Oz methodology is because we wanted to take the charge in defining what is a meaningful AI experience. We wanted to build conversation design templates and governance protocols and a step-by-step process that ensured not only responsible but meaningful AI, and that humans were always in the loop. So a part of this piece is what I just told you is this number one. Okay, I'm going to walk you through what that Wizard of Oz research looked like. And some things that we found were that, we had to define our outcomes and our constraints per turn. And what I mean by that is when you talk to ChatGPT, it's one input and then an output. That's a turn. Your next input and then an output. That's another turn. So think of it almost like if you ever hike, it's like switchbacks, right? To get you to the top of the mountain. And we use this Wizard of Oz methodology. I kind of came up with it, first time I've ever used it, to test our flows and our failure recovery really quickly. And then we turned our findings into these conversation design principles that our entire team is templatizing as everyone races to build their own agent. It's going to happen. We need to ensure there's cohesiveness, consistency, and most importantly, a meaningful, useful, responsible AI experience on the other end for our customer. And then I'm also going to walk you through how I've scaled research using agents. So for those of you that want to know how to incorporate AI and also what methodologies best support great AI experience, let's just jump into that. We're going to start with what methodologies ensure that you are creating, a useful, meaningful AI experience. All right, so we know we're going to build this grocery assistant at Albertsons, right? And the main goal is to help with meal planning and grocery shopping in one end-to-end journey, because we know that's how folks do it. They start with some global list, and then, either over the course of a couple hours or a couple days, they execute. And so I wanted to ground this research in an existing customer job to be done, right? Always important. So help me decide what to make and then make it effortless to shop for it. And the best thing this research could do for us was reveal what good looks like to each customer, right? And so after conducting this research, we found give them a fast path to a plan that fits their time, budget, diet, and their reality. They want to be known, right? In all that context, in all the craziness that informs their life. And they need to edit and decide freely without losing momentum, because even though they're talking to an AI, there is time rushed as anybody else. And no one has the leisure or maybe even the inclination to spend hours grocery shopping, right? Most people are doing it as they're doing other things. The kids are there, all the things. Most importantly, they need to trust it, right? They need to see what assumptions it's making on the back end. And when it does make errors, because it always will, graceful recovery. This is what good, meaningful quality look like to them. So just a question. I'm going to pose questions every now and then, but when you think about your domain, is there one thing that if you were making an assistant, it would need to just nail from the beginning? Okay, so let's talk about conversation design. What is it, right? If you're designing an assistant or even a chatbot, this thing does so much more, but let's say it's a chatbot or an assistant. It's a conversation. And designing within that little interface is going to look so different, right? But it's so much more than the boundaries or the constraints of the interface. It's how do you build trust? How do you surface information? Is it visual? Is it text bound? Are there CTAs? Or does the person who's using it just want to say yes or no to the agent? It's so much more than tone, right? Most importantly, how do you support turn by turn decision making and error recovery? Sorry, my dogs. Because when it comes to grocery shopping, it's really money. And it's money and it's health, right? How do I know that is truly nutritious and nourishing for my family? And how do I know you're giving me the best deal? And at the end of the day, how can you help me stay within my budget? Because everyone's suffering from the economy right now, but everyone has to eat. So we learned that a quality AI conversation must get these three levers right: customer needs, right? A quality conversation boils down to essentially three things: understand my intent, nail it from the very beginning. If you don't get it within that first switchback or conversation turn input output, it's gone. The value's gone. And it needs to be fully understood at that point. If not, the rest of the thread is going to be really painful. Surface personalized relevant information only. Don't give customers things that, the business just needs to get off the shelves. Of course, you have to balance business and customer needs, but when it comes to AI, generative AI right now, if you don't if you don't over let's say, you really have to give the customer a lot because you're building trust. And everyone's used to the enshittification of, not just AI, but digital experiences. So you really have to lean into them first. And so when I say personalized and relevant, you have all this. AI has been around for 50 years, traditional AI. You have all this behavioral and purchase information about me. Use it. And customers are fine with that. You know what I bought over the last 2 years, right? Use it. But even more importantly, from the very first turn, know who I am. I'm giving you clues. Pick up on them. Make sense of them. Use that as a layer on top of all that, data science. But the bottom line, did you solve the thing I came in here for? You know that thing I explained to you in the first turn? Plan meals for a family of four for 5 days with vegetarian constraints. Did you get that? And at the end of our convo, do I have a list with all the things I need? Systems needs. The system should only ask what it needs to understand intent. Don't make it feel like an interrogation. Sometimes I'll use Chat GPT to solve systems problems, and it'll ask me 3 or 16 rapid fire bullet points. Sure, that's necessary for solving world peace, but it's not necessary for getting, my family of four what they need in a timely and budget wise manner. We're not, it's not brain surgery. And then trust and control. The AI always has to be transparent when it's doing swaps, when it's, taking advantage of deals or coupons. Show the math. Confirm important changes before making them, and recover from errors gracefully. So I'm throwing up a prompt here. Like, if you came to the grocery assistant and you said, I have chicken in 20 minutes, what can I make? If you were that, meaningful, smart, useful, responsible AI, what would you surface next? So, like any good research, we had very specific goals, and I've delineated those. Where do shoppers most often get stuck or lose trust? Whether that's in the end-to-end app experience or these conversation flows we were prototyping. How much memory feels helpful versus creepy? So we don't want the Alexa phenomena, right? But how much should the AI know about them just so they feel seen? And when do people expect clarifying questions versus direct answers? You'd be surprised. They want direct answers, but a couple of clarifying questions around two. To understand what healthy means, to understand what, like new to cooking means, etc. what edits or swaps must be instant to keep momentum. The edits and swaps are probably the hardest part about this particular front end and back end conversation design. What errors are forgivable and which cause churn? And what should be relegated to the assistant versus the existing app flow. We did not want to assume everything should happen within the assistant. Eventually, sure, but are there certain things that should exist within the assistant for now to build trust and usefulness? And are there things that should be relegated to the app for now to maintain trust and usefulness? Okay, so this is what it looked like. Participants, we spent a week with them, and it was one-on-one. Sometimes I would moderate, sometimes I would play other roles. The key roles were moderator, wizard, and note taker. And I'll kind of tell you why those were so key. But to the participant, they thought they were dealing with a real chatbot that was already built and based off of some LLM model, like, OpenAI's chat GPT, what is it, 5.2, or Claude or something like that. But behind the scenes, what really happened was one person in our core team was the wizard. And so they built this console, and it's a prototype. And you can use, Figma Make, in addition to other tools, to build a similar prototype. But essentially, in real time, they were taking each of the participants' inputs and they were constructing AI answers. And it was really ingenious how the designers put this together, because we basically built a system prompt for ChatGPT. I did that part so that it knew our tone, our company tone. It knew our value proposition. It knew our products. It knew all that stuff. And the designer who was playing the wizard would run the input from the participant into ChatGPT that had been trained, like a low RAG environment on who we were, get an output, refine it based on these conversation principles that we hypothesized were important. And then they would put it through this prototype. So it outputted according to our design standards. And this is what the customer saw. Okay. So essentially, we were simulating the AI, right, with humans, because we wanted to learn fast. And we also knew that we could, well, this sounds a little, a little arrogant, but we thought we could do it better. We thought we could be more meaningful, more empathetic, deliver quickly in a way that ChatGPT wasn't. And so these were baked into our design principles. But here's why the Wizard of Oz methodology that I just showed you works well for conversation design. You're testing turn by turn structure, and most importantly, the repair patterns, right? So we can talk about, what do you need to repair? Assumptions. If the AI said, or the participant says vegetarian, perhaps the AI thinks that, that might be honey. When really, in the participant's mind, vegetarian is vegan, right? Or vice versa. Maybe the participant says vegetarian, and then the model thinks vegan. So it's not always like a blatant error, but those do come up, and they did come up in our research, like a price mismatch or a hallucination, right? We actually had baked in, built in error, hallucinations, and price mismatches. So we could understand what a correction, what a quality correction looked like. So these are the injected failure cases, right? And you know what is a ripe opportunity for an error? Ambiguity. Also, the swaps, right? Because what makes a good swap? If someone is brand prone, like let's say a Diet Coke, right? And they also, let's say in the past, they bought tons of Diet Cokes. We have that data science-y analysis. But let's say they also mentioned at that first turn, they were price conscious. So of course the AI is going to suggest there is this Diet Coke equivalent, a name, a store brand, right? Why don't you buy this? It's a much better price. And the participants would say, no, no, I can taste the difference. It's awful, right? So there's so much ambiguity. So how do we best support that? Um, and then you get really rich transcripts. So an artifact that I've never dealt with before are conversation logs. I mean, I've dealt with search logs and things like that, but we had a URL readout of every single conversation, every turn. So this was, we can analyze those and inform our design principles. Okay. And the outputs, like I had to really think hard about what the coding Excel spreadsheet would look like, because I knew I was going to feed this to an agent that I built to analyze specifically for this WAS methodology. And that'll be the next use case. But anyway, I wanted to give you an example of what one of these design principles is. So we came into the core team, it was me, two UXDs, two product owners, and an eng. And we kind of took the lead. This is what I mean about being flexible and courageous. We said, we see these disparate AI experiences popping up across the org, informing our app, and we're concerned. Not useful. It's this arms race to development, and it's flawed. Just to be first doesn't mean that it's good. And so we wanted to lead a governance program where we could templatize what a good generative AI experience looked like. And therefore, any of the groups that were rushing to build their own agents could follow these principles. And so part of the research goal was to show the value of that. And since we're now the governing body that sits on top of all of these experiences, and we're helping our cross-functional partners develop quality experiences, and part of that are these principles. So we're templatizing them so that other teams can use them. So this is an example. I'm not going to read it all through you because I've been talking, and I'm assuming that you guys have read this, but the assistant must keep up with shoppers as they think and adjust. So over the course of all the sessions, we would spend an hour with each participant. We saw them. They were sense making. They were adding prices, subtracting prices, comparing. They brought natural skepticism to AI. And so we saw them having to do a lot of effort to ensure that what they saw was accurate and in their best, what's the word I'm looking for? That it supported their best outcomes and what they really wanted and needed, that it wasn't just some kind of a business hack to take advantage of them and sell them more stuff, if that makes sense. So, in practice, you see what this is broken down to. But this is really fascinating. Okay. So we all know as researchers, if it can't be measured repeatedly, then it's going to be an opinion about whether, that research was meaningful, whether it really had an impact. And so from the beginning, I knew that we had to measure success here. So what does a quality conversation look like, right? So I came up with the clear definition of this. This was one of the researchers that worked on our team. She had worked at Microsoft, and so she kind of brought the foundation for this, and then I built upon it. But essentially, clear means clarity, logic, empathy, accuracy, and relevancy. And during this WAS methodology, we had each participant review their conversation, the entire thing, and then we gave them a statement. from 1 to 5. Was it easy to understand? And they rated accordingly. Now, um, curiosity, courage, and flexibility. That's what it takes to stay in research, right? To be a useful part of this whole AI experiment that we're all in. I pushed forward and I said, it's not enough to just do this in our qual research. We also have to build this into our evaluation of the model itself once it's live. So we use a tool called Langsmith to evaluate our AI. How well is our large language model performing? And they really hone in on accuracy. And it's accuracy from a technical perspective, right? Did the model execute as it should have? But by bringing this customer perspective into that evaluation, we're able to take it even further and assess meaningfulness, usefulness, and quality from a customer perspective. And so I'm working with our engineering team to get this framework embedded within Langsmith. And in my opinion, that's where we all should be. That is quantitative research. And that's the flavor of what we're dealing with in an AI world. Now, how do you get from doing this in the front end qualitatively to that Langsmith evaluation where it's coded into the model's workflows? You have a middle where that's going to be me and the core team. And once our assistant is live, or at least in beta, or maybe, we're testing it amongst the company, we're actually going to go in and hard code accordingly, looking at each turn and looking at the responses, and we're going to rate. And so essentially, that's going to become the golden data set. And we're going to give that golden data set to our enges. And we're going to say, here's an example of what, quality looks like. We've defined this, let's say, I don't know, a month's worth of data, and we've rated accordingly. Now train the third-party agent in Langsmith that's doing this evaluation on this golden data set. And so that's how we're going to carry it all the way through. And I'm really excited because I've never done this before. And so I'm championing it through. And I think this is really where we're going to bring our research expertise to generative AI. Okay, so what were the insights we got? Let me do a time check. My phone just died. Okay. Principles, speed, and consistency. So we came out with a validated set of conversation design principles that our core team members are going to reuse when building their own agents. And we fully understand that shoppers expect AI to know them, and we're laying out a playbook for how. And of course, I can't share the deeper insights or the deeper convo principles or anything like that because it's proprietary. But so I'm being very careful what I share. But these are some insights that y'all can take away when you're designing these things. One mistake per convo can be forgiven, but 2, they're abandoning. Okay, I'm going to stop this because I think I've come down enough from that launch that we just did. This happened before this meeting. And now let's get into what does it look like to use AI agents to scale research? So just for those that may not know what we mean, essentially we're building little softwares, I don't know, little packages that take some research task from input and take it to the next best action, right? So I'm not giving AI end-to-end anything. But here are some example of typical flows, right? So you can use it for intake. I have to go through, as an IC researcher, when I'm performing that role, I have to use JIRA and go through this intake process. Of course, I can speed that up and automate that. You can use an agent, for a methodology or research scope. You can use it to help your teammates self-serve and democratize research insights across the org. I've also used it when I was at Heap. I set up Zapier, the little zaps in Teams, so that when we had, any type of NPS dip, or if a user was reporting a problem, it would just automatically get scraped and sent to the right team. So, but the boundaries, it needs to be, you need to be able to trace every step so you can correct errors, and also just assure yourself that it's rigorous, right? That it's trustworthy, that you can put your name on it. But agents assist decisions. I own the decision. Okay. Um, these are things you have to worry about, right? Hallucination, right? Overconfident summaries. I'm sure you've seen them all in ChatGPT. Bias amplification, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So, for example, I built an agent for all of our cross-functional teams to basically assess and dig into all of the research we've done, right? All the findings. I'm very hesitant about releasing that completely in the wild without guardrails, because my concern is if they don't prompt correctly and ask a question as a question, that they're going to get bias amplification, right? If there's so much governance and so much oversight and education that goes into responsibly using these agents and sending them out into the wild. So when building, ask yourself, do I have the capacity? Does my company have the resources to provide that oversight? And if not, build agents that you don't need that for. So I'll show you one. Okay, so I built a WAS research agent analyzer. We had such a hard time getting our company to buy into this research. And Dustin, I'm going to ask you a favor. Just tell me to stop when I hit my time limit, because my phone died. Oh, it just came back. Okay, time check. I'm going to do this for 5 more minutes, and then y'all can ask questions. Okay. It took us, it was a Herculean amount of work. There were so many obstacles in our way. Nobody wanted to fund this research. We're already building, blah, blah, blah. And we just wouldn't take no for an answer. And we just were going to do this research. But knowing that, I knew that I had to show insights and results and next best steps to take right away. So I wouldn't be able to give the amount of time that I wanted to, like a 2-week interval, to just really dig into the data, do it all the ways that I do, so that I am very confident about it. So I knew that I was going to use an agent to help me. And the inputs were transcripts, coded notes, conversation logs, and the ratings, the clear ratings, right? What I wanted the agent to output were the themes and evidence to support the themes. So anything I didn't think about, because you can hard code themes, right? Based on the goals, based on problem statements, you can hard code themes ahead of time. Sometimes I don't like to do that, because I want to see what I'm surprised by. What did we unearth that we didn't even think about, right? Agent also, I wanted the agent to assess those breakdown moments. Where did the conversations just break? Where were the biggest pain points? Where were the biggest risks? But do it, overarchingly across all of the interviews we did, because I could remember some, but we were being inundated by so many. And then give recommendations, right? And additionally, I made tags to support our clear rankings. So, for example, clarity. If someone gave it a low ranking, I came in with some tags, and I would feed it to the agent, and those tags would help bubble to the surface evidence for that supported or maybe even contradicted the clear ranking. Because sometimes people will say, for example, empathy was a weird one. Folks would give like a 3 empathy rating because the chatbot talked too much. Very interesting, right? So sometimes I would want the AI to break it for me. Show me in that participant's example where potentially it was empathetic, but or show me evidence for this chattiness. Just ways to kind of come at that analysis from a different perspective. And then also validate our principles, amend our principles, iterate, suggest principles we're not even thinking about. But you can't do this without the human checkpoints, right? So anytime I get a quote, I validate it. I ask it, well, I built the agent so that it shows sources at all times. And so I'd go back to the source and I'd look for the quote. And sometimes it made stuff up. What a surprise. I gave it a golden data set. I said, these are examples of good. Follow them. Sanity check themes, right? So if it would surface a theme, I'd ask it a million questions about why, and I'd poke holes in it, etc. Okay, so the reason I'm showing you this is, let's see if this actually works. Oh, I'm going to just ignore it. Oh, never mind. Okay, I don't want to deal with sharing that window. But essentially, we can't just give everything away and be lazy when we're using an agent. Yay, we're using an agent. Maybe it'll 10x us, right? But the thinking goes in before. That's where all the thinking is. So when I built this Excel spreadsheet, I knew ahead of time what I wanted the agent to code for or to look for: mission personalization, failure type. And I called out what the failure types were: examples, user reactions, repairs. Did the prototype, did the wizard make a repair? If so, I gave it a quality score so it would know how to give a quality score. And then as you can see, there are tabs for examples, failure types. So I broke it all down. I basically gave the AI this schema. So this is how you make a decision. This is how you do your analysis. So this supports the system prompt that I built as well. So this is what I grounded the agent in. So grounding is a part of like teaching the agent. This is what good looks like. This is how you make your decisions. So I just wanted to show you that because I think a big mistake, and I also teach AI fluency to kids, and I see this with kids. They just kind of want to get a little lazy up here, I guess. Like it's kind of like when you know something can do something better than you, quote unquote, you're just like, I'm going to let you do it and I'll focus on these other things. But you can never do that with AI. Not when you're using it like we're using it, like I'm describing, right? You have to govern it. And this is part of it. You can never just check your analysis or analytical thinking or problem solving skills at the door. And then I'm going to end here. So this is our one of our biggest stakeholders. She's our EVP, and she basically runs our whole vertical. She was using Chat GPT. She had one of her engines like build a task. I don't know if you've ever built a task in Chat GPT, but on the backbone of a GPT, which essentially is like a specialized query that Chat GPT is doing for you, you add a scheduled task on top of that. So eventually you could say, like, at whatever cadence you want, take this system prompt and run it every Monday. So in this case, an engineer had built a system prompt to basically scrape the internet, and focusing on, validated authoritative sources for any AI tech news or retail news so that our executives could stay on top of what's happening, right? Like Walmart's partnering with Gemini. You can now order Aldi groceries from DoorDash or whatever it is. Stay on top of all this stuff as we're building agents and needing to rethink our business model because no one's going to be in an app anymore. But they were creating this manual Excel and they put me on the thread, and now I'm a part of the team, and I'm like, why are we and the most important person in the world who has no time to do anything but make these very important decisions was having to say, is the Excel updated? And I just thought, why don't we just create an agent to do this, and let's hook it up on the back end so that it deploys in SharePoint. No one has to update it. And that every time it gets new information, which could happen on a daily cadence, an hourly cadence, there's a Teams notification to the group to go check it out. So, it wasn't that kind of solutioning is the kind of solutioning we need to do as researchers. Because essentially, we're just like knowledge experts. We know our customers, right? But let's take it a step further. Let's take it a step higher. Now we are like makers. So I make it a priority to be in the know about the latest AI tools and which models are the most responsible and what hacks are going to make my life easier. Because I mean, I'll be honest, I have 3 kids to support. I love what I do. Put that all together and I need a job. So I'm going to keep myself relevant and keep showing value. And this is such an easy way to do it, right? I did learn Copilot Studio, which I'm going to plug if you're a 365 customer, is pretty easy to use. And it's already hooked up to if you're using Copilot as an assistant, it's hooked up to SharePoint, it's hooked up to all your Microsoft products. So it may be the way to go. Unlike GPTs, it does have a layering mental model that's a little bit different. And there's a little learning curve there, but I find it pretty doable.